They say you get what you pay for. The house was a steal, an old Victorian mansion on the outskirts of town, practically given away. I should have known there was a catch. The real estate agent, a woman with a smile that never quite reached her eyes, mentioned the previous owners left in a hurry. She called it a motivated seller situation. I called it a red flag, but the price was too good to ignore. The first week was bliss. I spent my days unpacking, exploring the labyrinth of rooms, feeling like the king of my own castle. The house was filled with old, ornate furniture, including a surprising number of large, gilded mirrors. They were in every room, even the hallways. A bit much, but I figured it was just old-fashioned decor. The first time it happened, I was in the master bathroom, brushing my teeth. I glanced up at my reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror. Behind me, standing by the door, was a tall, shadowy figure. I spun around, heart hammering against my ribs. Nothing, just an empty doorway. I laughed it off, shaking my head. I was tired, my mind was playing tricks on me. It had to be. But it happened again. In the hallway mirror, the same dark shape lurked in the periphery. I'd turn, and it would be gone. It happened in the dining room. Its reflection caught in the polished surface of the unlit chandelier. In the bedroom, in the full-length mirror on the wardrobe door. Always behind me. Always just out of sight when I turned. I started to get paranoid. I avoided looking in the mirrors. I'd wash my face with my eyes closed. I'd dress in the dark. But the house was full of reflective surfaces. A darkened window pane, the screen of my turned-off TV, even a spoon on the kitchen counter. Every time, the same silent sentinel stood behind me in the reflection. It never moved, never made a sound. It just watched. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what it was. Armed with a heavy fireplace poker, I stood in the grand foyer, my back to the largest mirror in the house. I took a deep breath, my hands slick with sweat. I could feel its presence, a cold spot in the air behind me. My reflection stared back, wide-eyed and terrified. And there it was, behind my reflected self. A tall, gaunt figure, its face a blur of shadow, its form indistinct, like smoke. I didn't turn around. Not this time. My eyes were locked on the reflection. I watched as the thing in the mirror slowly, so slowly, raised a long, thin hand. It wasn't reaching for me. It was reaching for my reflection. Its shadowy fingers drifted forward, passing through the air behind my mirrored self. My heart stopped. The figure's hand touched my reflection's shoulder. I watched, frozen in horror, as my own mirrored face twisted in a silent scream. The eyes in the reflection widened, not with my fear, but with a new, alien terror. And then, my reflection began to pull away, struggling against the shadowy hand that held it fast. It was then I understood. The thing in the mirror wasn't behind me. It had never been behind me in the room. It was behind my reflection, trapped in the mirror world with it. All this time, it wasn't me who was being haunted. It was my other self, the one living on the other side of the glass. And every time I looked in a mirror, I was forcing him to face his tormentor. I stumbled back from the mirror, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I ran through the house, but I couldn't escape the reflections. In every shiny surface, I saw the struggle. My other self, forever trapped, forever watched by the thing in the dark. I had to get out. I grabbed my keys and fled, not even bothering to lock the door. As I slammed the car door shut, I caught my face in the rearview mirror. My eyes were wide with fright. But behind my reflection, the shadowy figure was still there. And this time, it was smiling. I don't look in mirrors anymore. I can't. Because I know he's still in there. And I know he's not alone. And I'm the one who keeps showing him the monster. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more chilling tales. See you next time. The first night it happened, I dismissed it as a mouse. A faint, rhythmic scratching coming from the wall beside my bed. Scritch, scritch, pause. Scritch, scritch, pause. Annoying, sure, but I live in an old house. Old houses have pests. I rolled over, pulled the pillow over my head, and eventually drifted back to sleep. The second night, it was louder. The sound wasn't just faint anymore. It was insistent. Scritch, scritch, scritch. No pause this time. It sounded bigger than a mouse. A rat, maybe? I banged my fist against the drywall. The noise stopped, but only for a moment. Then it started again, faster, more frantic, as if my protest had only angered it. Sleep was a long time coming that night. By the third night, I was dreading sundown. I bought traps, poison, everything the hardware store recommended. I set them all around the bedroom, feeling a little foolish, but desperate. As the house fell silent, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. And then it began. Scritch, scrape, scritch. It wasn't just by my bed anymore. It sounded like it was moving, tracing the perimeter of the room, just behind the plaster. My blood ran cold. This was no rat. The sound was too deliberate, too methodical. On the fourth night, I decided to record it. I propped my phone against the wall, started a voice memo, and waited. The scratching started on schedule, and this time, there was something else. A low, guttural whisper tangled within the scraping. It was too faint to make out any words, but it was there. A voice. A human-sounding voice, raspy and dry, coming from inside my wall. I grabbed my phone and fled the room, sleeping on the couch with every light in the house burning. The next morning, I checked the traps. All of them were untouched. The poison hadn't been touched either. It was as if nothing had been there at all. But I had the recording. I put my headphones on, turned the volume all the way up, and listened. There was the scratching, clear as day. But the voice, it was gone. I listened again and again, scrubbing back and forth. Nothing. Just the endless, maddening scratching. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat in a chair facing the wall, a heavy flashlight in my hand. The scratching started, louder than ever before. It sounded like claws, long and sharp, tearing at the wood and insulation. The scraping moved, right to the spot directly in front of me. It stopped. Silence. My heart hammered against my ribs. And then, a single, hard knock from the other side. My side. I flinched back, my breath catching in my throat. Then another knock, and another. Knock. 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 It wasn't random. It was a pattern. The pattern I used to knock on my parents' bedroom door when I was a child and had a nightmare. A pattern only 3 people in the world would know. My parents are long gone. And I'm the third. The knocking stopped, replaced by that dry, whispering voice, clearer this time. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a name. My name. Over and over again. Yesterday, I bought a sledgehammer. I can't live like this anymore. I have to know what's in there. The scratching has started again, and the whispering is louder now, like it knows I'm coming. It almost sounds like it's encouraging me. I'm standing in front of the wall right now. I can feel a strange coldness radiating from it. The whispering is right on the other side. I'm going to turn this camera off. I'm going to swing. I have to see what's inside my walls. I have to.
It started subtly, a faint scuff on the pavement behind me as I walked home late one evening. I turned, saw the empty street bathed in the orange glow of street lights, and thought nothing of it. Just the city settling for the night. The next day, it happened again. This time, a clear, distinct footstep, heavy, like a man's work boot hitting the concrete. I spun around, my heart thumping. Nothing, just my own elongated shadow stretching out before me. I tried to rationalize it, an echo, a trick of the wind. But the sound was too specific, too close. It began to follow me everywhere. The soft crunch of leaves in the park when I was the only one on the path. The squeak of a floorboard in my own apartment, right behind me, when I knew for a fact every door was locked and bolted. I started walking faster, my keys clutched between my knuckles. I'd take different routes home, dart into shops just to see if someone was tailing me. The streets were always empty. The shops were always quiet, but the footsteps remained. My ears were always pricked, waiting. The footsteps grew bolder. Sometimes they would match my pace, a perfect, chilling synchronization. Step for step, a phantom twin walking in my shadow. Other times, they would lag behind, a slow, deliberate tread that felt like a predator stalking its prey. I'd stop dead in my tracks, holding my breath. The footsteps would stop too, a beat after mine, as if waiting for me to move again. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the sound itself. I started talking to myself, whispering who's there, into the empty air. I even tried running. I'd sprint down the block, my lungs burning, my own frantic footsteps a drumbeat of panic. And I'd hear them, impossibly, keeping pace right behind me, never getting closer, never falling further behind. It felt like they weren't following me, but were attached to me, a part of me. One night, exhausted and terrified, I was in my bathroom, staring at my reflection. My face was pale, my eyes wide with a fear that had become permanently etched there. The apartment was dead silent. I leaned closer to the mirror, my breath fogging the glass. And then I heard it. I stared at my own reflection, at my own feet planted firmly on the tile. And I watched in horror as the reflection of my own feet began to move, stepping out of sync with my own, walking in place, forever following. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.
Have you ever felt like you were being watched? I mean, really watched? In the sleepy town of Blackwood Creek, everyone feels that way. It started subtly. A flicker on a security monitor at the local grocery store. A grainy figure standing just out of focus on a doorbell camera. Nothing you could put your finger on, just odd. Then, old Mrs. Gable passed away. A peaceful end to a long life, the whole town agreed. But the next night, she appeared on the security feed of the bakery she'd visited every morning for 50 years. Just standing there, outside the glass door, looking in. The baker, a young man named Tom, thought it was a prank. A cruel, tasteless prank. He checked the street. Empty. But on the screen, there she was, as clear as day, her floral dress swaying in a non-existent breeze. Panic didn't set in overnight. It crept in, like the fog that often rolled over the creek. More people started seeing things. Mr. Henderson, the high school history teacher who'd had a heart attack a month prior, was spotted on the library's cameras, wandering the aisles he loved so much. A young girl, lost in a tragic accident years ago, was seen on the playground swings, her image frozen in midair on the park's surveillance system. They were ghosts in the machine, specters trapped in a digital purgatory. They never interacted, never moved things. They just watched. The town tried everything. They unplugged the cameras, but the images would burn into the blank screens. They smashed the monitors, only for the figures to appear on new ones. It was as if the town's digital eyes had become a window to the afterlife, an afterlife that was eerily close to home. Soon, no one dared to look at their screens. Doorbell cameras were covered with tape. Store owners turned their monitors to the wall. The constant, silent observation from the departed was maddening. People started to wonder, who were they watching? Us? Or were they trapped, forever replaying their last moments, their last familiar places, hoping someone would see them? One night, a teenager named Leo decided he'd had enough. His older brother, who had died in a car crash the year before, kept appearing on their home security camera, standing by the driveway. Leo couldn't bear it anymore. Armed with a baseball bat, he walked out to the camera mounted on the garage. He stared into the lens, his heart pounding. "What do you want?" he screamed into the night. "Just leave us alone." On the monitor inside, his brother's image flickered. For the first time, one of the apparitions moved. It slowly raised a hand, not in a wave, but as if reaching for something. Then, its mouth opened, and though no sound came out, a single, silent word formed on its lips: help. The town of Blackwood Creek is quiet now. The cameras are all gone, ripped from their sockets. But the feeling of being watched has never left. People walk with their heads down, avoiding eye contact, because sometimes, in the reflection of a shop window or a puddle on the street, they see them. The lost souls of Blackwood Creek, forever watching, forever waiting. And you start to wonder, if you died here, would you join them? Would you become another silent face on a screen, just out of reach? If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Let me know in the comments what you think the ghosts of Blackwood Creek really want. Thanks for watching. My son, Leo, has a friend. His name is Charlie, and he lives in the corner of Leo's bedroom, right by the window where the moonlight never quite reaches. At first, it was cute. I'd overhear Leo from the hallway, his little voice whispering secrets and stories. Charlie says the moon is made of cheese. He'd tell me at breakfast, his eyes wide with wonder. I'd just smile and ruffle his hair. All kids have imaginary friends, right? It's a normal part of growing up. But then, the game started to change. I'd find Leo sitting in that corner, perfectly still, his back to the room. "We're playing the quiet game," he'd whisper, without turning around. Charlie doesn't like noise. The air in the room always felt heavy, cold, even on the warmest days. I tried to play along. "Well, can Charlie come out and play with us?" I asked once, trying to sound cheerful. Leo shook his head violently. "He can't," he said, his voice dropping to a hush. He's stuck. One night, I was woken by a scream. I rushed into Leo's room to find him sitting bolt upright in bed, pointing a trembling finger at the corner. "He's mad," Leo cried, his face pale with terror. I turned on the main light, flooding the room and washing away the shadows. The corner was empty, just a dusty floorboard and a plain white wall. "There's no one there, sweetie," I soothed, pulling him into a hug. But he kept shaking his head. "He says you're lying. He says he can see you." My blood ran cold. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights. I'd hear faint scratching sounds coming from Leo's room, like nails dragging on wood. Leo stopped talking about Charlie, but I'd find him staring at the corner, his expression a mixture of fear and fascination. He started drawing pictures, stick figures of him and a tall, shadowy figure with long, spindly arms that reached the floor. In every drawing, the figure was in the corner, just watching. I decided I'd had enough. I was going to prove to Leo that there was nothing to be afraid of. That night, after he was asleep, I crept into his room and set up a small baby monitor, pointing it directly at the dreaded corner. I went back to my room, the receiver on my nightstand, and waited. For hours, there was only silence, the soft sound of Leo's breathing. I started to feel silly, letting a child's imagination get the better of me. Just as I was about to drift off, a new sound crackled through the monitor. A voice. It was deep and raspy, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It wasn't Leo. "You think that little box will save you," the voice rasped, a dry, humorless chuckle following it. "I've been here long before your son, and I'll be here long after." I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. The voice continued, low and menacing. "Go look. He wants to show you something." My feet felt like lead, but I forced myself out of bed and down the hall. I pushed Leo's door open slowly. The room was dark, but the moonlight from the window cast a faint glow. Leo was standing in the middle of the room, facing me. But it wasn't his face. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and a slow, unnatural smile stretched across his lips. He raised a small hand and pointed, not at the corner, but at the corner of my bedroom ceiling, directly above where I slept. And from the monitor on my nightstand, I heard the scratching begin again, closer this time. Much, much closer. I started my night shift at St. Jude's Hospital just like any other. The fluorescent lights hummed their usual dreary tune. The smell of antiseptic hung heavy in the air, and the distant beep of heart monitors was the hospital's steady, rhythmic pulse. My job was simple: deliver late-night meals to the patients. I'd been doing it for 3 years. I knew every floor, every wing, every shortcut. Or so I thought. Around 2 a.m., I was making my final rounds. I had one last tray for a patient named Arthur in room 1301. I wheeled my cart to the main elevator bank and pressed the button for the 13th floor. The door slid open, and I stepped inside. But as the elevator ascended, I noticed something odd. The buttons went from 12 straight to 14. There was number 13. I chuckled to myself. Of course, the old superstition. I must have misread the chart. Maybe it was room 1201 or 1401. I checked the slip again. Nope. Clear as day. Room 1301. Confused, I took the staff elevator at the end of the hall, the one we used for laundry and equipment. It was old, creaky, and rarely used by anyone but janitors and us grunts. Inside, the panel was ancient. And there it was, a worn, yellowed button with the number 13 etched into it. My curiosity got the better of me. I pressed it. The elevator shuddered and began to climb, groaning in protest. It felt slower, heavier than usual. When the doors opened, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. This floor was nothing like the rest of St. Jude's. The walls were a sickly yellow, peeling in long strips. The lights flickered erratically, casting dancing, distorted shadows down the long corridor. The air was thick and stale, carrying a faint, metallic scent like old blood. There was a profound, unsettling silence, broken only by a soft, rhythmic dripping from somewhere down the hall. My heart hammered against my ribs. This place felt wrong, ancient, but the room numbers were there, painted in fading black. 1300, 1302, 1304. I started walking, my rubber-soled shoes making no sound on the grimy linoleum. I found room 1301. The door was slightly ajar. Hesitantly, I pushed it open. "Arthur," I whispered, my voice trembling. The room was dark, but a sliver of moonlight from a barred window illuminated a figure in the bed. An old man, skeletal and pale, with eyes wide and unblinking. He was staring at the ceiling. A tray identical to the one on my cart sat on his bedside table, untouched, with food that looked like it had been there for weeks. "He doesn't eat much," a voice rasped from the corner. I jumped, spinning around. A nurse was sitting in a chair, shrouded in shadow. I couldn't make out her face, just the old-fashioned, starched white uniform. "He just waits." "Waits for what?" I asked, my throat dry. She chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. "To be discharged, of course. We're all waiting. But the doctor never does his rounds on this floor." A cold dread washed over me. "What do you mean? What floor is this?" "The 13th floor," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Where they put the ones they forget. The ones who don't get better, but don't leave." I slowly backed out of the room, my eyes locked on the shadowy nurse. As I turned to flee, I glanced into the other rooms through their small glass windows. Each one was occupied. Patients, all of them still and silent, staring into nothingness. Nurses in old-fashioned uniforms sat vigil in the corners, their faces obscured by shadow. They were all just waiting. I scrambled back to the elevator, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the button. As the doors began to close, the nurse from room 1301 stepped into the hallway. For the first time, the flickering light caught her face. Her eyes were hollow, empty sockets. Her skin was gray and translucent. She wasn't a nurse. She was a ghost. She smiled, a lipless, terrifying grin. "Don't forget your card," she rasped. "You'll be needing it for your rounds." The doors slammed shut. I never went back to St. Jude's Hospital after that night. Sometimes, I wonder if they ever found my card. Or if it's still up there, on the floor that doesn't exist, waiting for a delivery boy who will never return. Thanks for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there.